Have you ever felt like the world is speaking a language you just don't understand? Today, we're diving into that exact feeling, looking at the intersection of autism and physical disability. And we're going to do it through the really incredible story of author Wen Lawson, whose journey shows us what it's like to live in a world that's not just physically hard to get around in, but cognitively out of sync. So let's start with a really simple, everyday moment. The author, Wen Lawson, is at the dentist, and the receptionist asks, "What have you got on today?" Now, most of us would probably glance at our calendars, right? But Wen looked down at his clothes. And this isn't a joke. It's a perfect example of a profound communication disconnect. It really makes you wonder, why would a question that seems so straightforward cause so much confusion? The thing is, this has nothing to do with not paying attention. It's actually a peek behind the curtain, a glimpse into what it's like to process the world through a completely different cognitive lens. And that's what this first section is all about. We're going to explore how a world that runs on unspoken rules and figurative language can be constantly, and I mean exhaustingly challenging for someone who thinks in a very literal, focused way. Okay, get this example. A builder says he's off all day Friday. Now, to most people, that just means he has a window of time he can stop by. But for Wen, all day means, well, all day. It's a promise. So when 11 a.m. rolls around and the builder is a no-show, it's not just a minor annoyance. It's a complete breakdown of logic, and it causes real, genuine distress. And that's the crucial point here. Imagine trying to navigate a world where people often don't say exactly what they mean. It would be like trying to read a book with every other page ripped out. It creates this constant, low-level hum of anxiety that just colors everything in your day-to-day life. But this cognitive friction, that's only half the story. For so many autistic people, that struggle is amplified by another one, living with a physical disability. It's a true double challenge. You see, autism very often coexists with a whole range of physical conditions. We're talking about things like chronic pain from inflammatory arthritis, or the joint instability that comes with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, not to mention severe GI issues. Each one of these adds another whole layer of difficulty to just getting through the day. And when you have all these challenges piling up, it can lead to a lifetime of being profoundly misunderstood. As Wen shares here, he was misdiagnosed for decades. First, they said it was an intellectual disability, then schizophrenia. Just try to imagine spending 25 years of your life with the world treating symptoms but never ever understanding the real cause. Okay, but here's where things get really interesting. The author presents a single, really powerful idea that kind of acts like a key, unlocking a new way to see all these different experiences. It basically reframes the entire picture. This right here is the crucial insight. Wen lives with chronic, often debilitating pain. But when he gets into a state of flow, completely lost in his work, the pain just vanishes. I mean, think about that for a second. The physical cause of the pain is still there, but his mind becomes so intensely focused on one thing that it literally can't process the pain signals. This little phenomenon is the key to everything. And it all comes down to this concept, monotropism. It's basically a theory of an interest-driven mind. So a monotropic mind is like a super intense spotlight, pouring all of its energy into one thing very deeply. On the flip side, a polytropic mind, which is more common, is like having a bunch of different flashlights, spreading attention across many things at once. And the big idea here is that monotropism isn't a flaw or a deficit. It's just a different way of being. Think of it like a computer running a different operating system, like macOS versus Windows. It's not that one is better or worse. They just process information and the world in a fundamentally different way. So, how does this one big idea, this different operating system, tie everything together? How does it explain the communication mix-ups and even the disappearing pain? Well, let's break it down. First off, it affects our internal wiring. You know how you can just tell when you're hungry or thirsty or tired? That's a sense called interoception. It's basically our brain's hotline to our body's internal state. And for a monotropic mind, that hotline works a little differently. Because that monotropic mind is like a single spotlight, it might not even register a pain signal until that signal gets so loud it's overwhelming. But if that spotlight does land on the pain, well, then the pain can become the only thing the mind can process, totally dominating everything else. This operating system also explains the really powerful experience of inertia. And let's be clear, this is not about being lazy. It's that very real, very frustrating feeling of being stuck. Maybe you can't get started on something you desperately want to do, or you can't pull yourself away from something you're already doing. Wen shares this incredible story about jumping on a trampoline as a kid. He remembers knowing his body felt wrong, totally exhausted, but he just couldn't stop. His monotropic attention was locked onto the act of jumping, and it completely overrode the signals from his body screaming at him to stop. His mind was just stuck in that one flow state. So once you understand this idea of a different operating system, the whole goal shifts. Suddenly, it's not about trying to fix a person anymore. It becomes about fixing the environment around them. And what's the biggest barrier? It's something called ableism, which is basically systemic discrimination against people with disabilities. And we're talking about more than just mean comments. It's buildings without ramps. It's videos without captions. It's the assumption that someone isn't capable. It's all the things that create a hostile, inaccessible world. This story is just so powerful. Wen gets to a movie theater, wheels himself down this long hallway, only to find the doors to the actual theater are closed, with no way for him to open them from his chair. And he says in that moment he felt totally disabled, not by his body, but by the building. The environment was the problem. And that just reframes the whole conversation, doesn't it? It means the responsibility isn't on the disabled person to just deal with it. The responsibility is on all of us, on society, to build a world with empathy and accessibility baked right in, a world that works for everyone. And at the end of this long journey, it leads to this really beautiful conclusion. Self-acceptance isn't about pretending the scars and challenges aren't there. It's about finding strength in vulnerability and learning how to be resilient, how to bend with the wind without breaking. So, we're left with a final thought, a challenge that's both simple and massive. What if we just stopped asking people to change themselves to fit into our world? And what if instead we started redesigning the world, our schools, our workplaces, our social spaces, to actually fit all people? It's a fundamental shift for sure, but it's one that could change absolutely everything.